3 a.m. calls that haunt. Shocking secrets from a 911 dispatcher in Oregon. The phone rang. At 3 in the morning, it sliced through the dim, suffocating silence like a knife. For Marissa, a veteran 911 dispatcher, every ring felt like the quiet prelude to a horror movie. Little did she know that tonight, an eerie sense of dread would seep into her bones as she answered the call. 911, what's your emergency? The voice on the other end wasn't just frightened, it was trembling, terrified, as if something supernatural lurked just beyond the shadows. Please help me, it was a whisper, but it clawed at her chest like nails on a chalkboard. The strangeness grew with the caller's words, weaving together a chilling narrative of faces, figures, and unexplainable occurrences edging the small Oregon town. Yes, coming for me. His breath hitched. The man in the black coat. He is not alive. Marissa's heart raced. She had answered calls about domestic disputes, car accidents, even wild animal encounters, but this felt different, newer, wrapped in layers of unearthly mystery. Every detail painted a picture darker than the midnight sky. Her fingers danced over the keyboard, typing notes with urgency. This was no ordinary call. Shadows skittered across her monitor like electric ghosts, each notification amplifying the tension in her gut. What did the caller mean? Who was this man? Her co-workers in the dispatch center began to glance over, confusion flickering in their eyes. They could feel the shift. The air thickened, emotions taut, as if something none of them could see was snaking through the room. Listen to me. You need to get here now. Panic gripped the boy's voice, his words laced with desperation that sent shivers racing down her spine. As Marissa diverted resources to find him, she couldn't shake the sinking feeling that something watched them from the dark corners of the town. Just then, silence blanketed the line, drawing out a thick stillness, broken only by Marissa's ragged breathing. Was it disconnect? A faint thud echoed directly on the other end. Marissa's heart pounded with fear as she fought against the growing dread. She pressed down on the receiver, desperately calling his name, aware each ring brought them closer to a cliff unknowable and steep. Hey! Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. With the call still hanging in the air like a bad omen, Marissa's instinct kicked in. Something compelled her to dig deeper. Who had vanished into the night? Was this boy just another prank call? Or was there something real, something terrifying looming over them? Gripping her notepad, questions swirled through her mind. How long until she would have answers? The clock ticked ominously, and with every second lost, she felt the weight of fear drag her closer into unraveling truths. When she reluctantly ended the call, the unsettled atmosphere clung to her like a thick fog. What had happened to the boy? And what would come for her next? The ringing phone echoed in the stillness once more, a mocking reminder that shadows lingered just beyond comprehension. Marissa's heartbeat raced, each thump a roar in her ears, as she fumbled for the receiver. She could still hear the boy's voice, that frantic plea for help. 911, what is your emergency? She asked again, forcing calm into her trembling voice. But this time, silence wrapped around her like a cold mist, a shroud of dread that threatened to swallow her whole. The dispatch room buzzed with activity, but all Marissa could focus on was the oppressive weight of that call. She glanced at her colleagues. Gina, her partner, had furrowed her brows, a frown dancing across her lips. What was that about? She whispered, but Marissa could only shake her head. Trapped in her spiraling thoughts, it felt deceitful to voice them, to express fears of the supernatural, of a ghostly figure clad in black swirling like storm clouds in the night. A chill swept through the room as the overhead lights flickered, and for just a split second, she thought she saw movement in the corner of her eye, a black silhouette slipping away. She blinked, and it was gone. No, she whispered under her breath, half expecting the room to conjure another sound. But the only response was the faint drone of the radio, every murmur amplifying her anxiety. "Marissa?" Gina's voice sliced through her frantic thoughts. "We just got a report from the outskirts of town. A disturbance, loud banging. Could be associated with that call you just took." Marissa felt her chest constrict. "Where?" "North Ridge. Send units. Now." As her heart raced, Marissa's mind scrambled to connect the dots. The boy's panic echoed in her thoughts. North Ridge was rumored to be an old, abandoned area. Strange occurrences had been reported there before. "Gina, did the caller mention a location?" Gina paused, fingers freezing over her keyboard. "No," but Marissa leaned in closer. "But there are rumors. People say they see things there, unexplainable things. They say it's cursed." The word hung suspended in the air, thick and unsettling. Marissa could feel the fear teetering at the edges of her consciousness. "Cursed or not, someone could be in danger," she insisted. This was no longer just a call. It had morphed into a haunting puzzle. She redirected her focus to the dispatch screen, heart thundering. Just as she began typing up the new incident, the phone rang again. She jumped, instinctively snatching the receiver. 911, what's your emergency? This time, a cold voice replied, raspy and low. "You can't save him, Marissa." "He's already mine." Her stomach churned, bile rising in her throat. "Who is this?" The line went dead. The sudden silence hit her like a punch, leaving her gasping for breath. Her mind reeled. Had it been the boy? An apparition? "Marissa?" Gina called out again, worry threading her tone. "I need backup. Now!" Marissa yelled, her voice sharp and commanding, reminding her of the urgency of the moment. She had to move. This twisted game had begun, and she felt the shadows creeping closer. The lines between reality and nightmare blurred, an unseen terror inching forward. Little did she know that as the night deepened, more than just her resolve would be tested. The thin thread of safety tethered to her would soon fray, and what lurked behind the veil of night would bring dangers far worse than just phantom voices with dread gnawing at her. She buckled down, preparing for the chilling truth that awaited her. What had she unleashed? And who would be the next to answer? Through the thick silence of the dispatch room, Marissa's heart thudded louder, drowning out the usual noise. She shot glances toward Gina, who was tapping away at her keyboard, her furrowed brow deepening with every new piece of information. Marissa wanted to scream. She needed to know what was happening at North Ridge. "Units are on their way," Gina said, breaking the quiet that had settled like fog around them. But even the words that should have provided comfort only ignited her anxiety further. Marissa felt like she was walking on the edge of a cliff, teetering, about to plunge into darkness. She grabbed a pen, jotting down thoughts furiously. She needed to focus. The caller's voice still replayed in her mind, a tether to a brewing storm just outside the thin walls of her reality. "We have to figure out who that boy is," she murmured, even though she knew nobody could hear her over the clamor of her own fears. The phone rang again, and this time, Marissa nearly hurled herself across the desk to answer. 911, what's your emergency? "Please help me," came the fragile voice, echoing as though from a deep well. It cracked and broke, sending a shiver down her spine. "Who is this? Where are you?" Marissa pressed, desperately searching for clarity. "North Ridge, I can see it. The shadow, it's coming closer." The boy's words were almost a whimper, brimming with terror, and Marissa's stomach dropped. "Stay on the line," she shouted, though the line crackled. She turned to Gina. "Can you trace this call?" "Trying." Gina's fingers danced over her keyboard, panic glimmering in her eyes. "Please, I'm afraid." The boy's voice trembled, and Marissa felt a sickening knot tighten in her chest. "Just breathe. I need you to tell me what you see," Marissa urged, scanning the room for backup, a primal instinct to fight against the growing dread. "I can't breathe, the air is thick," he gasped. "Like a blanket of darkness, please." There was a sharp crackle and then silence. "No, no, stay with me." Marissa screamed into the phone. Marissa. Gina's voice cut through the anguished moment. I have a location. He came through. Where? Desperation clawed at her throat. Just off Gray Road, by the old factory. Marissa felt a rush of adrenaline. Send the units. Now. She couldn't let that boy fade into the void. Not after everything. With shaking hands, she wrote down the address, her mind racing with potential scenarios. But a creeping apprehension settled in the pit of her stomach. What was waiting for them at North Ridge? She stole a glance at the clock, the red numbers glaring back at her like beacons of doom. Time was slipping away as past and future merged into that harrowing night of dread. Suddenly, the lights flickered again. This time, they didn't just flicker. They surged wildly, plunging the room into darkness for a heartbeat that stretched into eternity. And then they blinked back on, only it felt different. The atmosphere had shifted. The sense of urgency was replaced by a palpable tension that made her skin crawl. Gina, did you feel that? Marissa asked, her voice low, glancing at her partner with a mix of fear and disbelief. Yeah, Gina replied, her eyes wide. It's like bring. The phone rang sharply, the sound slicing through the stillness once more. Marissa's heart skipped as she seized the receiver with urgency. 911, what's your emergency? This time, the voice on the other end was not a sobbing child but a calm and chillingly low timbre. I told you, Marissa. He belongs to me now. A chill washed over Marissa as the line went dead once more, leaving her gasping in disbelief. What had she stepped into? The lights flickered again, and for a moment, the darkness seemed alive, whispering her name. What if the shadows weren't just lurking, but hunting? Who was right in their warnings, and would she be strong enough to face the truth? Marissa gripped the receiver like a lifeline, her knuckles white as if they could somehow crush the chilling words spoken moments ago. He belongs to me now. What on earth did that mean? Dread pooled in her stomach, heavy and cold. Gina! She shouted, her voice a mix of panic and urgency. We need to track that call now. Gina's eyes darted to the monitors, and her fingers flew across the keyboard once more. I'm on it, but the system is acting weird. This might take. Just do it. Marissa interrupted, her heart racing faster than she could comprehend. The shadows outside the dispatch room seemed closer, almost tangible, reaching in to pull her into the abyss. At a heartbeat later, the lights flickered again, but this time they dimmed and steadied, bathing the room in a sickly glow that sent shivers down her spine. They had drained their usual intensity. Now it felt like they were struggling to fight against something. Marissa. Gina's voice broke through the haze, trembling slightly. I can't. There's interference. Please tell me you heard what he said. It sounded familiar. Marissa's breath caught in her chest. Familiar? How could that? A sudden rattle echoed through the room. They both froze, eyes darting toward the source. The heavy door swung open with a creak, revealing Officer Hayes, his expression a mask of concern and urgency. Marissa, we have units at the scene now, he said, glancing over his shoulder as if the shadows were creeping closer. But there's something you need to know. What is it? She stepped forward, her heart pounding. There's been a pattern. A series of strange calls related to North Ridge. Each one escalating in threat. And not just kids. Adults too. Hayes' voice lowered, conspiratorial. Every report mentions a shadowy figure. Presence. You're not just dealing with a scared kid, Marissa. Something worse. Marissa felt the edges of her reality fray. But why didn't we hear about this before? Why now? The higher-ups thought it was a hoax. Town folklore. Hayes met her gaze, his eyes dark with gravity. But it's real, Marissa. The last call we received, it came from a local who went missing a week ago. His body was found last night. A chill slithered down her spine. You're saying that voice, whoever this is, might have more ties to North Ridge than anyone realizes. His gaze sharpened, relentless. You need to prepare yourself. This is no ordinary situation. The weight of his words sank in, and Marissa felt the walls of the dispatch room close in around her. The air thickened again, like a fog laden with secrets. She turned to Gina, who regarded her with wide eyes, understanding the implications of what was unfolding. Suddenly, the radio crackled, a jumbled message breaking through the stillness. Unit 4, report back. Shadow sighted near the old factory. Roaring sound. Repeat. Roaring sound. Wait, what is that supposed to mean? Marissa asked, feeling fear slip like ice down her spine. I don't know, Gina whispered, her fingers hovering above the keyboard, frozen as if realization struck her. Marissa, Hayes exclaimed, urgency flooding his tone. We need to mobilize. It's either going to attack or do something worse. Before she could respond, a feverish rattle erupted within the dispatch room, the lights flickering chaotically as if they were fighting to hold on. And then came the scream. Not an echo, but a raw, piercing cry, a sound of terror that clawed at Marissa's insides. It came from the radio, rattled through the room, sending icy fingers down her spine. Officer. No. Don't. Then silence. A silence deeper than the darkness that surrounded them. What had she stepped into? An ancient fear? A haunting? Marissa's fingers trembled in the quiet, dread pooling hard and fast as she reached for the radio. Get me all available units now. We need backup at the factory. But somewhere in the shadowy depths of that voice earlier, the chilling words loomed. He belongs to me now. Who did that shadow want? As the dispatcher room buzzed in futile panic, she wondered. Would they get to the boy in time before he was lost? Forever in the darkness that hunted them? Marissa could feel the chaos surrounding her, a storm building on the edge of sanity. As panic swept through the dispatch room like a wildfire, she struggled to pull her thoughts together. She had to stay focused. There was a child out there, possibly in peril. Gina, how long until we can trace that call? She demanded, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. I'm trying. But the system won't cooperate. It's like it's what? Marissa pressed. Her brow knotted with worry. Like something is blocking it. I don't know how else to explain it, Gina replied, frustration creeping into her tone. Hayes moved closer, tension radiating off him in waves. Marissa, I can head out there now. I know the area. I can catch up to the units before no. The word escaped her lips sharper than intended. I can't let you go alone. If this thing is as real as it sounds. Before she could finish, the radio sputtered to life again, breaking through the veil of their collective fear. Unit 2, move back. It's approaching fast. Repeat. Its static suddenly swallowed the voice, but not before a guttural roar seeped through the speakers. Marissa felt her skin crawl, loud, primal, echoing with a haunting desperation. Did you hear that? She whispered, her heart nearly stopping in her chest. Yes, Hayes said, his eyes wide. We need to act now. Get everyone out. Only if I can go with you, Gina insisted, her hands trembling above the keyboard. I'm not staying here while you face whatever that is. Marissa's throat felt tight. She weighed the options, scanning the fearful faces in the room, the shadows bearing down on them as if alive. Okay, but we stick together. No one gets separated. They stood ready as she shoved the radio aside, not even caring for the jumbled commands still pouring through. The dispatch center had become a prison wrapped in shadows, a heartbeat away from suffocating them all. Let us move, Hayes commanded, shoving the door wide open. They burst into the flickering hallway, the air thick with apprehension. As they navigated past rows of empty desks, the chill only intensified. An ever-present whisper coiled around them, the weight of something unseen pressing against their backs. Did you see that? Gina shrieked suddenly, pointing at a corner, her voice sharp with fear. Marissa followed her gaze, but there was nothing, just shadows stretching, elongating in the dim light. It's probably just your nerves. Keep going, she urged, but deep down a seed of doubt had taken root. As they reached the exit, an oppressive atmosphere enveloped them. They went outside, the chill of the night wrapping around them like a shroud. Marissa reached for her radio again, but there was only echoing silence. The vastness of North Ridge lay ahead, dark, mysterious, waiting. Somewhere in that deep night lurked a presence, a shadow much larger than their fears. Suddenly, a scream tore through the air, shrill and desperate, drifting from the direction of the old factory. It was a sound that pierced through them like a knife. It was the same sound from the radio. Was that her? Marissa's voice shook. I don't know, Hayes replied, his brow furrowing deeper. But we can't waste any more time. They bolted toward the sound, adrenaline spurring them onward. Each step felt heavier as darkness danced around them, weaving through the trees like a predator stalking its prey. And as they neared the factory, the air thickened once more. A voice slid through the darkness, silky and sinister, echoing off the walls. He belongs to me now. Marissa froze, dread spilling into every fiber of her being. Who is sending these messages? She whispered, terror clawing at the edges of her mind. This wasn't just a search. It was a warning. What had they awakened? They had to move. Before they became part of the Shadow's narrative. They needed answers before it was too late. Keep your eyes open, Marissa breathed, though fear clung to her words. We're not alone out here. But as they crossed the threshold of the factory, a deafening silence fell, and they knew whatever had sung its dangerous lullaby would not be ignored for much longer. Each breath Marissa took felt like it could shatter the silence around them. The factory loomed larger than life, a hulking mass of shadows and rust. It whispered of secrets, of darkness, of everything they were racing against. Lights flickered inside, casting eerie shadows and creating shapes that seemed to dance tauntingly at the edges of their vision. Let South stick close, Hayes murmured, tension tightening his jaw as they stepped cautiously into the foreboding expanse. The air was thick with a musty smell of oil and decay, wrapped in an unsettling stillness that threw them into an uneasy trance. Just stay alert, Marissa said, though it did little to comfort them. The echo of the earlier scream lingered like smoke, heavy and acrid in her thoughts as they moved deeper into the belly of the beast. Each creak of the floorboards beneath their feet sent vibrations through her bones. Shadows flickered around them like flickering candle flames, and for a moment, Marissa was caught between the desire to run and an innate need to uncover the truth. Over there, Gina's sharp whisper broke through. She pointed toward a shadowy figure standing at the far end of the room. Marissa squinted but saw nothing distinctly human, just a dark shape that looked almost solid yet danced like mist. Is it moving? Gina asked, her voice trembling. I can't tell, Marissa admitted, anxiety clawing at her. But we need to. The figure shifted suddenly, and a jolt surged through Marissa's veins. She barely had a second to react as it dashed toward them, a blur of darkness and malice. Run! Hayes yelled, throwing himself into motion. They bolted back the way they came, the factory coming alive behind the machines clanged. The walls seemed to thrum, and the shadows twisted in furious pursuit. The roar from before throbbed through the air now, far closer and more feral than any noise the factory should have made. It was a living thing, hunting them through its jagged maze. I can't keep up, Gina gasped, fear stripping her voice. Marissa grabbed her arm, pulling her forward. Just a bit farther, Marissa urged, her heart pounding fiercely. They raced for a door that promised escape but seemed to taunt them, twisting inward as if trying to swallow their hopes. Hayes was in front when he stumbled. Panic rushed through them as Marissa turned, her eyes wide. Hayes! She screamed, but he regained his balance, shooting her a frantic look. Keep going. I've got this. No. It burst from her like a battle cry, pure desperation. They couldn't afford to leave anyone behind. I'll catch up, he shouted back, lunging toward a pile of debris beside the factory's wall. He grabbed a rusted rod, brandishing it like a weapon. Just go. The sight of him standing firm, though she felt it might be a mistake, rooted her for a second. But the sound of another horrific growl ripped through her, reminding her of the real danger. Marissa! Gina cried, her eyes darting everywhere, wild and panicked. Come on. With a final push, Marissa yanked Gina toward the door, and they barreled through just seconds before it slammed shut behind them with a reverberating boom. The air outside was like a slap to their senses, freezing but refreshingly clear. They tumbled onto the gravel, panting. What the hell was that? Gina choked out, staring back at the looming factory. I don't know, Marissa said, feeling the weight of what they had just escaped. But we can't just leave Hayes. The thought of him back in there clawed at Marissa's insides. She had heard his determination echoed in every step. And yet, with a child's life possibly at stake, a gnawing guilt settled deep within her. Lightning flickered ominously in the sky, illuminating the distance as thunder rolled, matching the pulsing rhythm of her heart. Should we go back? Gina's voice trembled. Uncertainty threaded through her words. Marissa was torn between the desperation to save Hayes and the very real fear of the darkness that hid behind the factory's walls. A whisper brushed through the wind, soft yet haunting. He already chose. Marissa froze, the chilling realization that whatever that thing was, it had something and someone planned. They had to make a choice. Time was vanishing with every tick of the clock as the factory loomed behind them, threatening and dark. Marissa felt dread settle like a rock in her gut. What were they really dealing with? Let us get help, she finally directed, trying to mask her fear with authority. But deep down, she knew time was slipping between her fingers. That child, that voice, the shadow, something terrible was closing in on them all. And in the depths of the night, a sinister laugh floated through the air, mocking them as they fled deeper into the storm. What had they truly awakened? Gina's breath came in ragged gasps, her eyes darting between Marissa and the ominous shadow of the factory. What if we go back? And Marissa felt a cold shiver run down her spine. We can't think like that. Hayes, he needs us. But not like this. With the storm rumbling overhead, Marissa took a firm grip on Gina's arm. She needed to move, needed to get to safety. We have to find a light, somewhere to regroup. Call the authorities. But deep down, a voice whispered that time might already be running out as they made their way down the gravel road. Rain began to fall in heavy sheets, soaking them to the bone. Every crack of thunder sent fresh jolts of fear through Marissa, the sound echoing Hayes' desperate cry for them to run. She shook her head, pushing away the memory. Focus. They needed to focus. In the distance, a flickering light struggled against the storm. Marissa's heart raced. There, a house. They stumbled toward it, feet slipping on the slick earth. The light held warmth amidst the driving rain, and she could almost feel hope blooming in her chest. Please, let someone be home, Gina fretted, scanning the windows for movement. Marissa knocked frantically on the door, each rap of her fist seeming to vanish into the swell of wind and rain. She could feel the thunder pounding in her ears, drowning out her thoughts. Just as she turned to chase another flicker of light inside, the door cracked open. A man stood in the threshold, his face framed by the dim light behind him, eyes narrowing at the two drenched figures. What do you want? Help, Marissa began, but an ominous growl echoed from far behind them. She turned and froze. The factory seemed to pulse with sinister life, shadows twisting in the depths of the building. Get inside, the man barked, urgency overriding surprise. Now, they hurried inside, the door slamming shut as the growl faded into the distance, replaced by the staccato beating of their hearts. Marissa leaned against the wall, feeling both relief and terror warring within her. The small room was cluttered, filled with old furniture and papers scattered like memories abandoned. A single faint bulb swung overhead, casting flickering shadows. Who are you? Marissa asked, desperation creeping into her voice. Name S. Carter. He threw them both a suspicious glance, then added, you two should be more careful. This storm isn't the only thing brewing up tonight. What do you mean? Gina asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Marissa could see the fear etched on her face, mirroring her own. Things. Carter hesitated, looking back outside as rain hammered against the windows. Things from that factory come out at night. They don't like intruders. A chill coursed through Marissa. We have to go back. We left a friend. No, Carter interrupted sharply. You can't go back. They'll take you too. Take us? What are you talking about? Marissa was losing patience, the urgency clawing at her insides. She needed answers, needed to understand. But Carter was already shaking his head. The shadows don't just want to be left alone. They want to reclaim what they lost, and they'll do anything to get it. A distant roar echoed from the factory, shaking the very structure of the house. Marissa and Gina exchanged horrified glances. Are you saying Hayes is in danger? Gina blurted, horrified realization dawning. Before Carter could respond, the lights flickered and the door quivered under the press of something outside. Stay back, Carter yelled, darting toward the door, brandishing a rusty pipe. The air grew heavy, thickening with a palpable dread. Marissa, Gina gasped, backing away toward the far wall. The shadows beyond the door danced like phantoms, their whispers clawing at the edges of Marissa's mind. Was it just the wind? Or could she actually hear Hayes' voice calling to them? The panic coiled in her stomach, an unrelenting serpent of dread. Hurry, she urged, her heart strategizing escape routes, even as the darkness threatened to swallow them. But just then, the door creaked open, revealing nothing but dark emptiness beyond. They held their breath, terror freezing them in place, waiting for whatever lurked outside to come crashing in. Then a familiar silhouette appeared in the doorway, draped in shadows. Marissa, I'm here, Hayes' voice broke through the chaos, but it sounded wrong, distorted, echoing like a ghost. Hayes, Marissa called, reaching toward him, but a claw-like hand came from the darkness, pulling him back into the shadows, as his screams exploded in her ears. Suddenly, the world tilted, and everything spiraled into darkness. In that instant of sheer panic, one thought raced through Marissa's mind. What other truths had they unleashed? And just as everything went black, a final whisper slithered through the air. They've come for you now, as silence filled the room. The weight of unanswered questions loomed heavier than the storm outside. What would they find when the light returned? Marissa gasped as the darkness enveloped her, a cold grip wrapping around her heart. Pulses of fear struck her like a relentless drumbeat, drowning out the chaos of the outside world. She stumbled forward, feeling the solid ground vanish beneath her feet, replaced by an all-consuming void. Marissa, a whisper threaded through the air, chilling her to the bone. Oh God, where are you? She called, panic clawing at her throat. The moment seemed endless, the shadows thickening like smoke, demanding to be fed with her terror. Marissa, Carter's voice cut through the darkness, sharp and desperate. Wake up. We need to move now. Light burst forward like a tsunami crashing through a dam. Marissa blinked hard, adjusting to the blinding glow of a flashlight in Carter's grip. He was crouched in front of her, Gina perched next to him, eyes wide with fear. Did you see him? Gina whimpered, her voice quaking as if it might shatter. Did you see Hayes? Carter shook his head, scanning the room, his flashlight beam dancing erratically along the peeling walls. Yes, not here. We can't stay. They come. Marissa's heart raced. Come? Who? Her voice trembled. Carter's silence gnawed at her, and dread pooled in her stomach. They know you're here, they're drawn to your fear. A low, keening wail echoed from outside the house, scraping against her eardrums. Marissa instinctively moved closer to Gina, who was shivering next to her. What was that? The shadows, Carter muttered grimly. They'll be hunting you. You're not safe anywhere. Marissa's thoughts raced. We can't give up on Hayes. He's out there and I can feel him. He needs us. Or they need you. Carter shot back, tension coiling between them like a tight rope ready to snap. You might lead them straight to him. Gina glanced between them, fear radiating from her like heat. What if we just wait? The storm will pass and then we can know. Carter interrupted, eyes widening. Hiding one T by us time. It'll only make it worse. We need to get far away from here. Thunder crashed outside, a rumble that felt like a warning, and Marissa felt the cold sweat trickle down her back. But we can't leave him. We can't. A flickering light shone through the cracks of the boarded-up windows, blurring in and out like a heartbeat. Marissa steeled herself, an idea igniting in her mind. What if we go back to the factory? Maybe we can draw them away from Hayes. Carter scoffed. You're not thinking clearly. You want to go right back into the den of nightmares? But if they're drawn to us, maybe we can use that to find him. To lure them away, or lead them straight to you. Carter countered sharply, each word steeped in urgency. Gina was growing more frantic. We can't just leave him. We can't. The light flickered again, casting wild shadows that danced ominously along the walls. Marissa's heart raced faster, each flicker fueling a fear that somehow twisted inside with determination. We don't have time to argue, she said fiercely. We either help him or die trying. In the midst of their standoff, the eerie wail grew louder, ricocheting through the room, a howl of shadows, an unholy chorus growing closer. Carter's brow furrowed, and a sense of resolve dawned in his eyes. Okay, if we do this, we stick together. Together, Gina echoed, her small voice carrying a hint of unyielding spirit. They quickly gathered what little they could grab and moved toward the door, the air thick with tension and some inexplicable dread pushing back against them. With shaky hands, Marissa turned the knob, the wood creaking under the strain. Light peeked through the opening, and the howling intensified, swirling like wind in a haunted house. Let us go, Marissa urged, stepping out into the tempest that raged beyond as she crossed the threshold. The storm lashed against her, but she felt an inexplicable pull guiding her towards the factory, the shadows licking at her heels, eager to reclaim what had been lost. With a heart full of fear and a fierce spark of hope, she propelled herself forward into the darkness. But with every step she took, fragmented whispers brushed past her ears. They were not just words. They were promises and threats woven into one chilling melody. There is no escape. You cannot run from us. The shadows danced closer, tantalizingly out of reach, yet so hauntingly persistent. Marissa glanced back at Gina and Carter, who were trailing behind her, faces drawn tight with anxiety. What have we done? Whispered Gina. With cold realization sinking into her gut, Marissa replied, We've reached the point of no return. As they approached the looming factory, an unsettling silence fell over them, one that screamed memories of dread. What awaited inside could shatter them forever, or perhaps it might just be the path to haze. But what other horrors would awaken once they stepped inside? The factory loomed in front of them, a dark behemoth standing defiantly against the raging storm. Marissa hesitated, her breath quickening as if the shadows had taken form behind her. The wailing had stopped for a moment, and in that heavy silence, dread settled like a weight on her shoulders. Stay close, Carter whispered, gripping the flashlight tighter as it flickered, casting uneasy shadows across the cracked concrete. They stepped through the threshold, the sound of thunder fading into a distant drumroll. The air inside the factory was stale and thick, carrying a smell of rust and decay. Do you feel that? Marissa's voice trembled as they walked deeper into the darkness. The oppressive weight of unseen eyes bore down on her, making her skin crawl. Feel what? Carter replied, his voice barely above a whisper. But she sensed it, a pulse of energy that seemed to thrash and writhe just beneath the surface of reality. It pressed against her mind, urging her to turn back. Gina moved cautiously, her small form dwarfed by the vastness of the factory. Marissa, what if this was a mistake? She hesitated, glancing around as the shadows shifted like living creatures in the corners of her vision. Marissa squared her shoulders, determination igniting her fury. We won't find Hayes without taking risks, and we can't let those shadows have him. Suddenly, the low hum of machinery filled the silence, jarring them. The sound echoed ominously throughout the factory, reverberating off the walls. It felt alive, as if the place itself were awakening from a long slumber. Who's there? Carter called out, his bravado cracking under the strain. The sound of their own footsteps felt muted, swallowed up by the factory's insatiable appetite for noise. Just keep moving, Marissa urged, her heart thundering in her chest. But as they pressed further inside, the darkness thickened, taking on a weight that clung to them. Each step made the shadows stretch and pulse, throbbing in time with her racing heart. The air was electric, charged with an unseen presence that made the hairs on the back of her neck stand on end. A flash of white interrupted her thoughts, and Marissa caught a glimpse of something moving in the corner of her eye. Did you see that? She gasped, turning toward the flicker. Carter's face paled. What? I didn't see anything. It was there, it was right there. Marissa insisted, a chill flooding her veins as she pointed. The shadows swirled, twisting into grotesque shapes just beyond the grasp of her flashlight beam. Gina clutched Marissa's arm. This was a terrible idea to come back here. Shoo! Carter snapped, raising the flashlight and directing it toward the movement. But as the beam flickered across the expansive darkness, it illuminated nothing but the peeling paint and rusting metal around them. Each moment that passed tightened the knot of fear in Marissa's stomach. What if the shadows are more than just illusions? The machinery's humming grew louder and a metallic screech filled the air. It was a sound of ancient machines coming to life. Run! Carter shouted, urgency piercing through their fear, and they took off deeper into the factory. A chaotic flight fueled by pure adrenaline. They stumbled into a vast room filled with relics of the past, broken gears and rusted tools scattered across the floor. The ghostly whispers returned, more potent now, swirling around them like a raging wind. You shouldn't have come here, the voices taunted. You will lose everything. Marissa's eyes darted around, searching for a way out. Where is Hayes? She yelled into the dark void, desperation clawing at her throat. From somewhere in the shadows, a figure materialized. For a fleeting second, it seemed familiar, but the moment vanished, swallowed by the darkness. Help me, Hayes? Her heart leaped at the sound. She lunged toward the voice, reaching out into the gloom. But the shadows constricted around her, dragging her back, unwilling to release their hold on her fear. Carter pulled her back just in time. No, it's a trap. But before she could respond, the factory shook, a deep rumble piercing through the deafening silence. The ceiling above them groaned, and debris began to fall. They needed to escape, but the way out was disappearing. The shadows swallowing the entrance hole. In that moment of panic, Marissa realized the truth. They weren't just hunting for Hayes. The shadows were hunting them, and every uncertainty, every doubt, was a feast for their insatiable hunger. As the walls of the factory closed in around them, Marissa could feel it. Time was running out. Stay together, she shouted as they bolted toward the last flicker of light, the echoes of their frantic footsteps drowning in the chaos. But perhaps it was too late. What would the shadows claim next? Would they take each of them one by one? Or was there something far more sinister lying in wait, ready to reveal itself? Marissa moved like a firefly darting through the gloom, adrenaline surging through her veins. The walls of the factory loomed, creaking like ancient bones as they dashed deeper into the cold embrace of darkness. The shadows whipped around them, hungry whispers scraping the air with malevolence, gnawing at their resolve. Stay close, Marissa called, but doubt twisted her gut. She could feel the shadows reaching, curling around her, the breath of something unfathomable trailing behind. Just ahead, a thin beam of light flickered from a corridor. There, she pointed, hope blooming even as fear clawed at her heart. They sprinted, driven by terror and the relentless need to find Hayes. As they turned the corner, the light grew brighter, illuminating a room lined with dusty remnants of machinery and forsaken tools. It was filled with an eerie glow. At the center, there was a makeshift altar, scraps of metal and rags intertwined, almost whispering a language of ancient despair. And there, in the shadows, was a dark figure, indistinct yet disturbingly familiar. Hayes, Marissa called, heart racing as she ducked under a hanging wire, almost falling due to her sudden stop. But the figure remained still, empty-eyed and clad in shadows, grinning out at them like a predator. Suddenly, the howls surged louder, echoing off the walls. Felt as if the shadows closed in. Run, Carter shouted, grabbing Marissa's arm, pulling her away. They retraced their steps, each frantic breath prickling the back of their necks. Leave him, Carter urged, but Marissa's heart didn't heed the command. The shadows flickered, almost tauntingly, inviting her back. The presence they had awakened demanded a sacrifice. The voices swirled around them, a cacophony of anguish and promises. You will suffer. She couldn't think. She could only feel. I can't abandon him. Her voice broke, desperation pouring from every word. Then we need to fight, Gina added, pushing forward with unexpected courage, her small frame lit with determination. Shadows can't take what we refuse to give. Marissa took a deep breath, steeling her nerves. Together. We faced them together. Before they could act, the shadows hissed, coiling tighter around them. A shift in the air made Marissa's chest tighten. The ghostly figure emerged again, flickering closer, its grin widening with malevolence, her eyes gleaming with a hunger that chilled her. Your friend has made his choice. The figure spat, its voice slithering into her mind. He belongs to the night. You won't escape no. Marissa yelled, heart racing. Yes, not yours to take. With that, a surge of power rushed through Marissa. All at once, she felt the heavy weight of shadows press against her. But she focused on Hayes, breathing deep through the fear. We won't let fear get the best of us. The shadows recoiled in response, howling as each word struck a chord of defiance. We choose our destiny. Gina took Marissa's hand, grounding her, the warmth pushing back against the encroaching cold. Together, Carter stepped forward, raising the flashlight like a beacon, its light slicing through the darkness and illuminating the grotesque shadows that lurked. Leave him, he roared. Return to the abyss. And in that instant, light erupted. The shadows shrieked as the beam showered the figures, sending them sprawling back. It felt like a pained cry escaping from the bowels of the factory, filled with rage and despair. The brightness pushed them away, revealing a path to the center of the altar. Go, Marissa urged with newfound confidence as she dashed forward. Hayes, we're coming for you. As she pressed on, the shadows began to recede, their insatiable hunger thwarted by the strength of their unity. She could sense Hayes, could feel his presence tugging at her heart. Then, with a fierce determination, Marissa reached the altar, its energy pulsating like a heartbeat. Hayes, we're here. Fight back. A figure staggered into view, a tortured reflection of the man she knew. They locked eyes, and in that moment, she saw the flicker of hope. Marissa, help, Hayes cried, his voice breaking through the storm of despair that surrounded them. Take my hand, she shouted, reaching to grasp him. With a firm tug, Hayes lurched forward, escaping the darkness that clung to him. Just as the shadows lunged again, they interlocked fingers, the power of their connection exploding outward like fireworks. Gina and Carter joined hands, forming a circle, their hearts drumming in unison. We won't be taken, they shouted together, rallying against the forces of darkness. The shadows screeched, recoiling from the light they emanated as the factory shook violently. The battle reached a fever pitch. The shadows disintegrated under the blinding brightness, sending gales of wind spiraling around them. With one final shout, Marissa felt a rush of warmth fill her heart. And then silence. They stood in the room, panting, drenched in sweat and remnants of shadows, now scattered like dark ash in a sunbeam. The darkness had fled, leaving them trembling but unbroken. Hayes was there, with worry etched in every line of his face but alive. Is it over? He whispered, pulling Marissa into a fierce embrace. For now, she replied, fear still buzzing around her. But the warmth of their unity quelled the tremors. We fought back together. As they exited the crumbling factory, dawn broke, spilling light across the horizon, casting off the last remnants of the night. Each of them bore their fears, but they left knowing shadows could not own them. United in their strength, they stepped onto a path leading back to their community towards the light, where all would eventually be well. And as they walked, Marissa felt more than relief, she felt a sense of clarity. What she had uncovered that night was a force they could choose to stand against, but also understanding the shadows beckoned from within each soul. The power to push back, to unite against the darkness, was its own light. Marissa caught Hayes' gaze as they closed the distance toward home. Together, right? Together, he affirmed, gripping her hand tightly. As they traversed the familiar landscape, alive with the hues of morning, Marissa understood that the night had left its mark, shaping them into guardians of their own tales from that day forward. They had faced terror, and left a legacy of resilience behind as the haunting echoed faded into distant whispers on the wind. But they vowed to be brave. For the next time shadows dared creep close, they would be ready. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories because what comes next could blow your mind. Smash the like button now and feed the algorithm to keep this community thriving. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending, because I want to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your actions fuel our journey together.